Hi, welcome to Edgewater Bible Church 2020, March 15th. This is going to be a new venture for you, a new venture for me. And so we believe that the church is not in a building. And so you where you are today with me and with the rest of us joining together, we are the church. And so this is an exciting new place for us to be. So we're going to figure out how this works, and who knows what God will do through it. Here's what I want you to do first and foremost. I want you to find a leader, and I want you to name that leader, okay? You are probably in your home right now. You're out somewhere. I'm not really sure where you are. I hope that you're emotionally and spiritually engaging in what we're doing. So what I'm asking you to do is find a leader. If it's your family, fathers, potentially take the leadership role and say, I will be the leader for the next hour as we go together as a church. So do me that favor, pause the video right now, talk amongst yourselves, and find out who would be the leader for the next hour. Who is the spiritual leader? And I want you to name who that person is out loud. So if you are alone, congratulations, you are the leader of the service in your home today. So do me a favor, pause the video, talk amongst yourselves, and find the leader. If you are the leader, please raise your hand. Thank you. Leader, here's what I would like for you to do right now. I would like for you to pray for the church. Pray for the church that you are with right now. Pray for the people that you are with right now. Pray that for the next few minutes they will gain something from it and that God will speak to their hearts. And also, if needs be, ask the group and say, hey, does anybody have prayer requests? We never want to go through any kind of church service, whatever form we are in, and somebody may be hurting and want somebody to pray for them. So if you're the leader, I want you to ask around and say, hey, is there anything major that we need to pray for? Obviously, we need to pray for our state and for the health of the people in our world, because people are dying from this coronavirus. It is a serious thing. So at a minimum, you can pray for that. So leader, do me that favor, ask around, see if there's any major prayer requests, and then take the time and pray for your church that's right with you, and pray for your brothers and sisters if they have needs, and also pray for our state, our country, and the world as we deal with this thing called the coronavirus. Thanks for praying. I just want to let you know kind of the roadmap for the next 4 weeks, at least on Sundays. And so I don't know what this is going to look like. To be honest with you, as a leadership team, we don't know what tomorrow has in store as far as this coronavirus goes. But here's what we're going to do, at least on Sundays, spiritually, for the next 4 weeks. We are going to look at 4 battles that Jesus Christ faces on the road to victory. So we are getting ready to celebrate Easter. April 12th this year is Easter. And we know that Easter represents the resurrection of Jesus Christ. We celebrate the fact that Jesus Christ rose from the grave. And as Jesus Christ rose from the grave, he determined, he declared, he told the whole world that he is the victor. He is victorious over everything. Jesus Christ proved not only that he is God and victorious over the world, but that he is victorious over death, over evil, over Satan. No one beats Jesus Christ. He wins in the end. Okay? So that, as a spoiler alert, Jesus Christ wins. And that's the story of the world. Jesus Christ will win no matter what happens. He is the victor. But there is a road to that victory. There is a journey that Jesus Christ has to go on in order to be victorious. And what we know about every single war that's ever been fought is that there will be casualties. There will be pain. There will be struggles. There will be obstacles to be overcome. And even if we know that we're going to win, the battle still must be fought. And so Jesus Christ will declare victory over death, over sin, over Satan. But there is a road to that victory. And so what we're going to do for the next 4 weeks is we are going to look at 4 battles that Jesus Christ faces before the victory. 4 battles that Jesus Christ faces before the victory over death, over the cross, and over Satan. And so today will be number 1. We'll go the next 3, and then we will have Easter, which is the celebration of victory of Jesus Christ. Okay? So today's passage, battle number 1 that Jesus Christ faces is found in John chapter 18, verses 1 through 11. John chapter 18, verses 1 through 11. So leaders, do me a favor. Look around the room. If it's just your spouse, if it's nobody, if it's 10 people sitting in your living room right now, please make sure that everybody can see a Bible or has a Bible. If you don't, pause this video, make sure that everybody has a Bible. Go find one, go download one on your phone right now, download the Bible app. We are reading out of the ESV, the English Standard Version. So leaders, make sure that everybody has a Bible so we can all be reading this together. One of the things I'm going to do here today, because we have a different opportunity, is I'm going to ask that you pause the video at certain times and ask questions of the group. I like to have a group discussion. You might as well. You're sitting with a group or you're sitting with somebody else. Please, let's just use this opportunity to have a discussion. So leaders, make sure that everybody has a Bible. If you need to, pause the video. So let me read John chapter 18, verses 1 through 11. This is battle number 1 for Jesus Christ on the road to Easter, on the road to victory. John chapter 18, verses 1 through 11. When Jesus Christ had spoken these words, he went out with his disciples across the brook Kidron, where there was a garden which he and his disciples entered. Now Judas, who betrayed him, also knew the place, for Jesus often met there with his disciples. So Judas, having procured a band of soldiers and some officers from the chief priests and the Pharisees, went there with lanterns and torches and weapons. Then Jesus, knowing all that would happen to him, came forward and said to them, "Whom do you seek?" They answered him, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus said to them, "I am he." Judas, who betrayed him, was standing with them. When Jesus said to them, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. So he asked them again, "Whom do you seek?" And they said, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he. So if you seek me, let these men go." This was to fulfill the word that he had spoken. "Of those whom you gave me, I have lost not one." Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servants and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. So Jesus said to Peter, "Put your sword into its sheath. Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me?" And so here we have the story, the beginning of the end for the life of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ poured into a lot of people when he was in ministry, but he specifically chose 12 men. He handpicked 12 men. He said, "You are the men that I am going to spend the most time with. I am going to invest in you." And one of those men, his name was Judas. And after serving Judas and ministering to Judas and pouring into Judas for 2.5 years, Judas turns his back on Jesus Christ. He sells him out for 30 pieces of silver. Judas is a greedy thief, and he wants money more than he loves Jesus, because he doesn't really love Jesus. And so here we see the end result of that. Judas says, "I know where Jesus Christ is. I know how you can find him." The Jewish leaders were trying to capture him in the middle of the night so that no one would know. And Judas was the man who was going to make that happen. One of Jesus's hand-picked men, Judas, turned his back on Jesus Christ. And so in this first battle, the first part that we see is that Judas betrays Jesus. One of the persons that he loved, Jesus loved, turned his back on Jesus and betrayed Jesus. And then we see the second part, the result is that the Roman government captures Jesus Christ, the God of the universe who never did anything wrong, perfect, pure, and holy, never committed one single crime, is arrested as a criminal by the Roman government. So here's what I would like for you to do as you process through that. Leaders, do me a favor. Do 2 things. Number 1, have somebody read the passage again. John chapter 18, verses 1 through 11, okay? John chapter 18, verses 1 through 11. Have somebody read that passage again. Okay, number 2. So first, read the passage. Number 2, I want you to ask 2 questions and potentially discuss them amongst the group, okay? Question number 1 is this. In what ways, from an earthly perspective, does it look like Jesus Christ failed? So as you read this passage, there are a few things you could say, well, Jesus actually didn't do that great. He actually failed, and here's the reasons why. So from an earthly or a certain perspective, it might look like Jesus Christ failed. So ask the question, in what things in this passage would tell us that, you know what, it's possible that Jesus Christ wasn't as good as he says he was, wasn't as strong and as powerful as he claimed to be, because he claimed to be God, which is the most powerful thing. So in what ways might it be perceived that Jesus Christ is not as strong or as successful as one might think. Okay. Second question is, what things in this passage cue us in that something else is going on, right? So there's a few things that Jesus Christ says and does in this passage that make us think, maybe Jesus Christ knows more than we do. Maybe there's something else going on. Maybe we don't understand the full picture. From an earthly perspective, it looks one way, but maybe there's a different perspective. Maybe there's something else going on. What things in this passage would indicate that something bigger is going on than what we first perceive from an earthly perspective? So ask those two questions. In what ways, from an earthly perspective, does it look like Jesus Christ failed? And then secondly, what happens in this story that makes us think that maybe something bigger is going on? So take the time, ask those questions. All right, answer number one. Answer to question number one. Number one, he lost one of the 12. If you're God, you shouldn't lose anybody. You should have a perfect track record, at least from an earthly perspective. That's what some might say. If you're talking about leadership, Jesus did pretty good. Out of the 12 men that he invested in, he only lost one, which is pretty good in terms of a leadership. However, if you're God, you shouldn't lose anybody. At least that's not what some people might think. So the first thing is that one of the men that Jesus specifically poured into, Judas, turned his back on him. And it's not like he left. It's not like he walked away. He sold Jesus out for 30 pieces of silver. So this is an absolutely clear betrayal of Judas against Jesus Christ. And so the question is, or what might be said is look, Jesus Christ, you poured into these men for 2.5 years, and you didn't keep all of them. One of them turned his back on you. And what we see in Mark is, at least physically, at this moment, all of the disciples deserted him. And so one man, Judas, turns his back and betrays Jesus directly for money, and then the other 11 scatter because they're scared. And so from a certain perspective, from an earthly perspective, you think, hey, Jesus, you did okay, but you didn't do perfectly. You didn't get everybody that you tried to reach. Those 12 men, you lost one of them. So you could say that. The second thing is, you could say that the Romans captured him, right? If Jesus Christ is that powerful, if he's that much of an authority over all authorities, how was it that the Roman government was able to get him? And let me just tell you, again, a little bit of a spoiler alert. I don't know if you know this or not, but Jesus doesn't escape, right? There's not some sort of miraculous midnight escape from jail. We know that in the book of Acts, Peter, the shackles are off of his hands and his feet, and the doors open up, and Peter is rescued from jail. He escapes the Roman government, right? There's something greater than Roman government, and Peter escapes. But that's not the case with Jesus. He is captured by the Roman government. He is jailed by the Roman government, and he does not escape. He is beaten by the Roman government, and ultimately he is killed by the Roman government. And so you would say, Jesus, if you're God, if you're that powerful, how was it that this earthly entity was able to beat you? Because he doesn't escape. There's not a trial that he gets off and some sort of judge or attorney that gets him off. In the end, from an earthly perspective, the Roman government wins. So I just wanted you to think about that. And so that's the answer to the first question. Okay, that's number one. Answers to question number two. There will be two answers to that question. Okay, so the question number two is, what are some things that we see in this passage that indicate to us that there's something else going on, that maybe things aren't as they seem, at least not on the surface level? And I will tell you, sorry, I did play a little bit of a trick on some of you. One of my answers is not in John chapter 18. It's still in the book of John, but it's in John 13, verse 21. So this one wouldn't be in the passage. You wouldn't have caught it, but some of you are really smart and Bible scholars, so you would have caught it. So anyway, here's what we see in John chapter 13, verses 21. So John chapter 13, verse 21, this is the Lord's Supper. This is the night before Jesus Christ is betrayed. They're having dinner, all 12 disciples and Jesus Christ. So we're addressing the issue of, did Jesus Christ fail when it came to Judas? Here's what John chapter 13, verses 21 says. After saying these things, Jesus was troubled in his spirit and testified, "Truly, truly, I say to you, one of you will betray me." The disciples looked at one another, uncertain of whom he spoke. One of his disciples, whom Jesus loved, was reclining at the table at Jesus' side. So Simon Peter motioned to him to ask Jesus of whom he was speaking. So that disciple, leaning back against Jesus, said to him, "Lord, who is it?" And Jesus answered, "It is he to whom I will give this morsel of bread when I have dipped it." So when he had dipped the morsel, he gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. Then after he had taken the morsel, Satan entered into him. Jesus said to him, "What you are going to do, do quickly." Now no one at the table knew why he had said this to him. Some thought that because Judas had the money bag, Jesus was telling him, "Buy what we need for the feast," or that he should give something to the poor. So after receiving the morsel of bread, he immediately went out, and it was night. Here's what we see in John chapter 13. Judas does betray Jesus, but Jesus Christ knew it was going to happen. He knew exactly what was going to happen with no question in his heart, absolute certainty. He knew that Judas would betray him. And he looks at him in the face and he says, "What you're going to do, go do it quickly." But here's the interesting thing. Here's the thing that cues us in. What does Jesus do to avoid getting captured? He knows that Judas is going to betray him. He knows what Judas is about to do. He's going to say, "Hey, I know where Jesus is. You can capture him." What does Jesus do to avoid capture? And the answer is nothing. He doesn't change anything. He doesn't look at his disciples and say, "Hey guys, Judas is getting ready to betray us. You know how we go to the garden all the time to pray? Judas probably knows we're going to be there. So let's avoid that place. Let's go somewhere else tonight so we don't get captured by the Roman soldiers." But Jesus doesn't do that. He goes to the same place. He knows he's going to get caught. He knows what Judas is going to do, and he knows that he's going to get caught. And yet, he lets it happen. So this cues us in that Jesus knows something else. Jesus is privy to some information that the rest of us don't have. Even his own disciples, even Judas himself. Jesus knows there's something else going on. And what he knows is that he has to go to the cross. In order for the sins to be paid for, the sins of the world to be paid for, Jesus Christ has to go to the cross. And so if Judas doesn't betray him, then the Roman soldiers don't capture him, and then Jesus isn't killed, and then sins aren't paid for. So Jesus Christ looks at Judas, he knows what he's going to do, and he lets it happen. Why? Because it's part of the plan. It's part of the plan of Jesus Christ to be captured and to be killed. And so yes, Judas does betray Jesus, but Jesus allowed it to happen. Jesus was in control and said, "I can do something different, but I'm going to let this happen." And so Jesus, once again, is demonstrating that he is in control. Now, that's the first answer to the second question. What in this passage, or what in this story, start with the passage part, what in this story cues us into the fact that there's something else going on, that Jesus maybe didn't lose or didn't fail in the way that we originally thought. So, I'm going to go through one more answer, and to me, this was one of the most powerful things that I ever learned about this night. And so I'm going to share that with you now. Here's the answer. The second part of the second question, what in this passage tells us that something else is going on. Okay, second part of the answer, at least the one that I found, you may have found something different. Good job if you did, is this, and found in John chapter 18, verses 4. So you have the Roman soldiers, a band of Roman soldiers, and chief priests, and some Pharisees. So you have Jewish leaders and you have Roman soldiers. And they are coming to capture Jesus. Okay? So as you think about this, who's in control? Answer that question to me. Who's in control? So here they come in chapter 3 with their torches and with their weapons. There's this mob coming to get Jesus. And then in verse 4, then Jesus, knowing all that would happen to him, came forward and said to them, "Whom do you seek?" What does it say right there in verse 4? It says that Jesus knew what would happen. Jesus foreknew. He is God, so he knows what's going to happen before it even happens. And so this whole group of people are coming to get him. What does he do? He doesn't hide in the shadows. He doesn't say, "Hey, hide me. It's dark. I might be able to hide behind this bush." No, he steps out and says, "Who are you looking for?" He knows they're looking for him. So he steps out. He's putting himself out there to be captured. And then It says in verse 5, then they answered him, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus said to them, I am he. Now in verse 6 is amazing. When Jesus said to them, I am he, what happened? They drew back and fell to the ground. So here you have this group of Roman soldiers and Pharisees and scribes. They're coming to get Jesus. And Jesus says two words in Greek, I am he. It's only two words in Greek. And as he says those things, all of those soldiers, all of those men who are coming to get Jesus, what happened? They drew back and fell to the ground. Jesus Christ knocked over Roman soldiers and men with only his words. He didn't push them. He didn't give them a gust of wind. He said, I am he. And the men drew back and fell on the ground. Jesus Christ, with his words, knocked these men over physically. So I ask you the question, who's in control here? You may think, well, they captured Jesus, they won. But clearly, Jesus Christ is more powerful. Jesus Christ is the one who, if he wants it to go his way, is going to go his way. And so the fact that they were able to capture him was only because Jesus Christ allowed it. And so I just want you to see that it looks like on the surface that the Roman government and that the priests and the scribes and the Pharisees, that they were more powerful than Jesus because they captured him. But clearly, Jesus Christ is more powerful than everybody in this story. And then I love in verse 8, Jesus answered, I told you that I am he. So if you seek me, let these men go. Now Jesus Christ is calling the shots. He's saying, I know who you want. You want me. Come get me. Leave these men be. He's calling the shots. He's telling the Roman government, the Roman soldiers, what to do. He is now in charge. And this is absolutely amazing to me. So on its surface, it looks like the Jewish leaders have won. It looks like the Roman soldiers are more powerful than Jesus. It looks like Jesus failed because he lost Judas and Judas betrayed him. And eventually all of his disciples deserted him. That's what it looks like on the surface. That's, if we look at it from a human perspective, that's what things look like. It looked like all hope is lost. All hope of a Messiah, all hope of saving Jesus Christ, all hope of saving the world, all hope is lost if we look at it through a certain lens. But there's a different story going on. There's a bigger picture going on. There's Jesus Christ more powerful than these entities. And the only reason that Jesus is captured is because Jesus allows it. The only reason that Jesus is betrayed by Judas is because Jesus allows it. Everything that happens in this story happens only because the God of the universe, Jesus Christ, allows it to happen. And the fact that he's letting it happen is a glimmer of hope in this story, because it looks like he failed. But there's something else going on. What an amazing story. What an amazing battle that Jesus Christ goes through. To see that from a certain perspective, it looks like Jesus has failed. It looks like all hope is lost. And that when you look a little bit deeper, there's a bigger picture going on. So here's what I want you to do. If you're following along with us, if you're still engaged, here's what I want you to do with your family, at the dinner table, at the breakfast table, with the group that you're with your spouse, whoever. I want you to answer this question. What does this have to do with us? So it's 2020. We are in our homes potentially because of this coronavirus. What does this mean for me today? 2,000 years ago, it looked like Jesus Christ had failed. And yet there was something going on that Jesus knew that the rest of the world didn't know. There was a bigger picture being played out. And Jesus Christ was the orchestrator of all things. So what does this mean for you today? How can this apply to your life today? And so I would invite you to take some time and have a discussion. What kind of things is God telling you through this passage? What is God telling you about your life? What is he telling you about your circumstances? What is God reminding you or teaching you for the first time through studying this? Okay, now you've had a chance to discuss what this means to you. Let me just share with you what I believe the application points could be for your life. Okay, as I read this story and as I processed and prayed through, this is what came to my heart. This may or may not be needed in your life. I don't know, but let me just share with you what I felt like God was speaking to me in this. So here's the first thing that I take away. Number one, Jesus Christ isn't worried. He isn't worrying, running around. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. Should I do this? Should I do this? He's confident. Now, we know the night before he goes to the cross, he is sweating drops of blood. So it is okay to be stressed, but he's not worried. He's not panicking. He is confident about what is going on. He steps forward and says, "Who are you looking for?" He looks at Judas and says, "Now you need to go do what you do and do it quickly." Jesus Christ isn't worried. Sometimes I think we get too worried because we forget who is on our side. So in this moment, Jesus isn't worried. That's the number one thing. And I think that we need to take that away. We need to stop getting so worried about the things around us and remember that we have God behind us. Number two, the thing that at least it teaches to me, and it may be an encouragement to you, is this: that something that looks really bad might actually be really good. So a perfect and pure and holy God who never did anything wrong, one of his 12 betrays him. The Roman government captures him and kills him. That seems like a really bad thing. But in the grand scheme of eternity, it was the beginning of the most beautiful thing, that is Jesus Christ's death on a cross, which pays the price for all of the sins of all mankind. So something that looks really bad, it looks like, man, Jesus just missed it here. He got overtaken by the Roman government. He was betrayed by one of his own. No, behind the scenes, Jesus Christ is saying, I am using this bad for the good of all people. I'm reminded of Romans 8:28, which says this: "And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose." I don't know what's going on in your life right now. It could be that things look really bad from a certain perspective. It could be that you feel like you are a failure. It could be that you feel like God has failed you. I don't know what's going on in your life. I can't pretend to know that. But here's what I know. God promises that he will take everything that you have gone through and everything that you're currently going through and everything that you will go through. He takes that and turns it for your good. I truly believe that because the scripture says it and because it's played out in scripture time and time again. And here's a good example. Judas betrays Jesus. The Roman government overtakes him, beats him, and kills him. And he uses that to save the world from their sins. So sometimes things look really bad, but in fact, they're really good. Point number 3, application that might be an encouragement to you is this: God's in control. This goes back to number 1. We don't worry like the world worries. We aren't concerned about things that the world is concerned about. I'm not saying we don't care. I'm not saying we're just absent-minded Christians who walk around confused and not really caring about the world. We care. We're paying attention. But what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, God is in control, right? Diseases are not in control. Governments are not in control. God is in control. And if this God who is in control loves you and loves me and loves the world more than we can comprehend, then we don't have to worry so much. Stressing is okay. Jesus stressed out from time to time, but worrying is where we get ourselves tripped up. So I would like to encourage you in this time, in this season of our lives when we could get worried, we could freak out about all the things that are going on. And I'm not minimizing the pain of the things that are going on in your world or in the world around you. But we have to trust that God is in control. We have to trust that God is loving and he cares about us and he is in control. So I leave you with that message. The God of the universe is always in control. No virus, no government, no whatever can overthrow God. God will have his work done in this world. And God loves you more than you can imagine. You want the God like that on your side. Okay, leaders, you are back on duty. So here's what I want you to do, leaders. I want you to take a moment, and I just want you to kind of survey the room. Either take a look at people, see if their faces are excited, sad, whatever it is. Ask people questions, open the floor up if needs be. Just see where the group is. And if somebody needs to have a discussion, let them talk about that. Say, this is what I'm worried about, and I don't know how I can not be worried about that. This is what's going on in my life. You know what? I didn't think about this before. Can you please pray for me? Can you give me the strength to trust in God at this moment in my life? Because it's not easy. So leaders, take the moment and kind of go around the room. If it's your kids, if it's your wife, if you're by yourself, just think about it yourself. But leaders, take the moment and just feel the room out, have a conversation. If you get into anything that's a little bit more complicated, feel free to shoot us an email, give me a call, give Dave a call, give Jim a call, whatever you got to do. But make sure you process through it. And then the last thing I want you to do, leaders, is just pray it out and have a great day. I pray that you guys are blessed throughout the rest of the day. Thanks.